The first reason that large format consoles are used in studios is that they provide multiple channel strips with the essential tools you might need to record an instrument, such as a mic preamp, a high-pass filter, an EQ, a compressor, a fader, and potentially even more. This is very useful when tracking a band. Let's say you've got 8 drum mics, a bass, an electric guitar, an acoustic guitar, a lead vocal, and 3 background vocals. That's 15 channels of microphones. For a basic setup in the days of tape, each mic would connect to its own channel on the mixer. The engineer would set the preamp level for each channel, and then each channel on the mixer would record to a separate track on the tape machine. This was a relatively clean solution compared to connecting every microphone to a standalone preamp before sending all of those channels to the tape machine. And in this way, mixers were actually a relatively compact unit for accomplishing essential tasks. Now, by today's standards, this sounds ridiculous because we can now accomplish the essentials with a laptop and a basic audio interface. The audio interface has built-in mic preamps, and the DAW is the multi-track tape machine. Now, my audio interface, the RME Fireface UCX2, only has 2 built-in preamps. In order to record the 15 microphones for the hypothetical band, I need to use some external mic pre's, where the microphones connect to the external mic preamps, and the preamps connect to the inputs on the interface. This RME 12 mic Dante can be connected with ADAT, a digital audio connection, and some of these other preamps could be connected with analog cables. Using external preamps is useful even if you have a mixing console with built-in preamps, because it provides some variety. For example, the preamps in the RME 12 mic Dante are exceptionally clean, while some of the other preamps in my collection can be used to intentionally add colorful harmonic distortion. That's why you'll usually find a rack of outboard preamps in most studios, whether they have a mixing console or not. All of my outboard preamps are relatively compact. I've got 8 channels in one rack unit here, 12 channels in one RU here, and 2 1-channel 500 series modules here. There are mic preamps out there that take up several rack units for a single channel, but all of this is still much more compact than a giant mixer. Of course, a mixer will also often have built-in EQ and dynamics processing, which is something that you won't find in a basic audio interface. But you may be asking, why would you add EQ and compression before recording? Can't you just use EQ and compression later on in the mixing phase? And while you can save all processing for the mixing phase, you don't want to fall into the fix-it-in-post trap, where every problem in the mix becomes tomorrow's problem. You'll start to make better music more efficiently when you start mixing during the recording process. This can include being thoughtful about mic placement, and it can include using EQ and dynamics before the signal hits the DAW. These changes are permanent, but if you make them skillfully, it takes you one step closer to the sound of the final record. Of course, making skillful mixing decisions takes some practice, so be sure to download the free ear training guide with the link below the video. And you'll also find links to some of the gear that I've mentioned here. The ability to process audio before it reaches the DAW is also useful for creating headphone mixes for performers. Sometimes making the performer feel more comfortable with some EQ and reverb in their headphone mix can make for a much better performance. With a small to medium session, a powerful computer, and an efficient audio interface, you can run the signal from the microphone to the preamp to the audio interface, through some plugins in the DAW, and back out of the interface into the performer's headphones. At a certain point, however, you may reach the limits of your computer's processing, forcing you to increase the buffer size of your session. When you increase the buffer size, you also increase the monitoring latency. That very short period of time between the moment the performer plays a note on the instrument and the moment they hear that note in their headphones. Excessive latency is very distracting to a performer, so you want to avoid it however you can. An analog mixer has effectively 0 latency, regardless of the buffer size in the DAW. Therefore, a mixer with some post-effects auxiliary sends can be a good tool for providing a dialed-in headphone mix to a musician with 0 latency. To mimic this functionality without a mixing console, you're going to need more than a basic entry-level audio interface. The RME Fireface UCX2 has built-in EQ and dynamics on every channel and an incredibly flexible routing software called Total Mix. Using Total Mix, I can create a headphone mix for each performer, complete with EQ, dynamics, reverb, and echo, And these effects don't need to run in a DAW, so there's no need to worry about the monitoring latency or the buffer size. Also, I can choose if I want these effects to be recorded or if I only want them for monitoring.